about 8 years ago, I felt completely stuck in life. More importantly, I felt I was stuck in my personal growth. It was like the years were going by and nothing was changing. And that was really scary. This was about the time that I moved to Cambridge. I felt very isolated. I could barely talk. I remember to struggle even entering a coffee shop, going to buy something, having to interact with someone, saying hello, good morning, how are you? All of this was very difficult to me. And at the same time, I felt I had so much to say, so much to express, so much that I could be. So there was such a distance between the state I was at and the state I wanted to be at. I felt that change was the equivalent of trying to lift a weight that was too heavy for me to lift. This distance was so big that it felt I could never be there. When I was in this state, I remember a story about years before when I was doing a master's in bioinformatics. I had a background on biochemistry, so I had no clue about programming. I knew very little about computers, and I arrived to a master's degree where I had to learn how to program. They put us together with students from computer science, and the computer science students were much better at programming. They knew already a lot, and me and some of my colleagues, we knew very little or almost nothing. On top of that, I started my course 2 months after the starting date, which meant when I got there, I was already behind. I remember struggling so much with programming that even when I did my first exam, my teacher couldn't believe that I could actually pass it, because during the classes I couldn't do almost nothing. What happened was that we had certain work to do, and I decided I wanted to program a robot. When I finally went to do the task, I was totally overwhelmed with what I had to do. I had to do so much programming to do my project, my idea, to put it into practice was too much for me. And I remember there was a PhD student there from computer science, and I told him, I don't see how I can do this. It's just, I don't know where to begin. And he told me, just start with one task. One line of code, if you can do that. Just break it down into the smallest possible step you can implement. And then add another one. And another one, and slowly you'll be able to do it. And he left me doing that, and I thought about it, and I started implementing it. Slowly I built a robot, and then slowly I started programming this robot to do the thing that I had intended it to do. And I was so proud of myself. It took me a lot of time, a lot of work, but I did it. When it came to that point in my life that I was overwhelmed with what I had to do to change myself, I thought about this situation. I thought about breaking down whatever I wanted to do, my transformation, into the smallest possible steps I was able to execute. And that meant breaking it down to really small steps. For me at that time, everything triggered a stress response. I got anxious with anything really. So I had to break it down to the point that I started by changing the mug I used to drink coffee on. Even that was a struggle. I remember being anxious just thinking about drinking from a different mug that I usually used. Then I started doing things such as choosing different routes to catch my bus, or to go on a walk in a different route. And all of that was a struggle, but slowly I started stretching my comfort zone. Slowly I started this transformation. I started abandoning old habits and implementing new ones. The same I did with conversations. I started changing the way I was replying to questions. I started adding more to the conversation, me asking more questions instead of waiting for the other person to ask me. I started being genuinely interested in others. trying to find out what make others tick and making an actual conversation. So in different areas of my life, I started taking little steps that would add on top of other steps, and I was stacking up skills and habits that were helping me transform in the way I wanted to. Slowly I started changing into it got to a point that I could lift bigger weights, and I remember that in about 8 to 9 months I felt completely different. It was like the person from before had died and there was a new rebirth of someone very different, someone that was able to be the one that took initiative, could initiate a conversation, someone that wouldn't hide from all new experiences, that instead was excited by them. It was like the seed of hope. The possibility of change was actually there, and I could experience it. It was not just an idea, a concept. It was not just something I read on a book, I saw on a video. No, I could actually feel it. And that is the point that you need to get at. If you feel stuck in life, you need to plant that seed. First a hope, and then that experience of the possibility of change. And it all starts by that. And choose the smallest possible step you can take right now. And take it, even if it's something silly, such as changing the mug that you drink coffee on, or going for a walk through a route that you usually don't, going to a different coffee shop, a supermarket, whatever it is. Choose that little step that you are able to take. And we are not taught how to do this. What to do when someone feels stuck. No one ever told me that. No one ever told me that there was something I could do about the way I see myself, the way I'm experiencing the world, the way I am. I thought I was a certain way and I would stay like this forever. Until I decided to try doing something new. Until I tasted the possibility of change. It was only a concept. And no one before had told me how to go about it. And that was the way I started exploring the unexplored. Started knowing more about myself by putting myself in different situations that I have never been in. I started changing the way I behaved, the way I talk, the way I plan, I did things. And when we feel stuck, many times the tendency is to move from a place to place, to have that feeling of, I'm going just to start everything from zero. I tried that, it didn't work. I had that feeling every time I moved from one city to another during my studies, and nothing would change. Of course, wherever I went, I carried my shadow with me. It was always there. And in fact, every time I moved, it was like things got worse. Not only because of my isolation, but because of the fact that my hope of the place helping me change was actually fighting against me. To the point that the last time I changed from a place to another place was when I changed country and I moved to Cambridge. And that everything was so overwhelmed, my stress response was crazy. My anxiety levels, everything was so high. I had to realize that this change that I wanted was internal, not external. Nothing in the world that I could change around me would change me. And it's a much difficult change to start changing something about ourselves, about the way we feel in certain situations. Learning how to calm ourselves down. Learning how to stop overthinking. Learning new behaviors, new skills, how we can learn communication skills, dating skills, how can we talk in front of an audience without being stressed, how can we face the situations that are the most stressful and still not only cope with them but strive in them, using them as a path to growth instead of trying to hide, feeling defeated. Instead of that, feeling that that situation is the ideal situation to empower us, to move us forward. If you don't want to feel stuck, do things in a way that you're consciously changing your internals. If you're feeling that you're trying to lift too much weight, break it down into smaller weights that you can actually lift. become stronger over time so you can lift more and more weight. So you start transforming into that person that you know you can be. More importantly, create in your mind the possibility of change. That will unravel into the most challenging but rewarding process of transformation, where you start feeling that you finally being you. That you're being you more than ever before. You're expressing yourself truthfully. You start living life in accordance to what it feels right to you. And there's a feeling of rightness, like you're in the right moment, the right place, right time, doing the right thing. That's the process you need to start. Find that possibility of change. Plant that seed in your head. That's all for today. Like this video if you like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below if you have any questions or comments. See you in the next video.